Are you an overwhelmed SaaS founder ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where using AI the right way means letting it help you think faster, not letting it confidently run your business straight into a well-written disaster. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. So when did AI go from helpful assistant to answer to everything? It feels like every tool promises instant clarity, faster decisions, and smarter outcomes. But the real question is what happens when everyone starts relying on the same machine generated thinking? Probably a lot of the AI slop we're seeing out there in the marketplace now. Well, in this episode, we zoom out from the hype and dig into where AI actually creates value and where it quietly falls short. You'll hear why speed and data alone don't equal insight, and why experience, judgment, and context still matter, and probably even more now in an AI saturated world. We'll explore how overtrusting automated outputs can flatten thinking, amplify bias, and lead teams to the same obvious conclusions, while the real opportunities just slip by unnoticed. The conversation breaks down how to use AI in the right way as a force multiplier, not as a replacement for human intuition. From eliminating tedious bot work to sharpening strategic focus, this episode reframes AI as a tool that frees leaders to think bigger, not abdicate thinking altogether. If you're navigating how to adopt AI without losing what makes your leadership decisions and business distinctly human, this episode offers a grounded, practical perspective you'll want to hear before letting the machines take the wheel. Let's get into it. Our founder on Tuesday was Alex Sanfilippo, founder of Podmatch. He joined us to share how a community-first mindset can outperform clout chasing in the creator economy. He broke down why serving independent podcasters, not celebrity shows, became Podmatch's unfair advantage, how education builds confidence for hosts and guests, and why tracking one meaningful metric beats drowning in dashboards. They're building an amazing SaaS over there. Alex also shared the thinking behind the Pod Value Initiative, proving that platforms can scale while putting creators first. And 1 week ago, we had an expert guest, Love Kapoor, technology leader at Bit. He took us inside the future of enterprise software development. Drawing from his experience building fintech platforms processing $100 billion a year annually, Love explained how AI is enabling citizen developers like me and other non-technical people, accelerating composability and shifting engineers toward higher level architectural work instead of the lower level, grind out code work. His message was pretty clear. Writing less code doesn't mean doing less. It means delivering more business value. If you missed either one of those episodes, go back and give it a listen. And, check out Alex's episode and think about a podcast for your SaaS too. My guest today is Daniel Nikic, a global strategist and problem solver who brings together human judgment and artificial intelligence in a really unique way. He has decades of experience spanning multiple continents and works as an extension of leadership teams, usually in multinational corporations and funds, and advises them on investments across AI, software, and data. In a world obsessed with tools and automation, I'd say we're definitely that, Daniel brings a refreshing and often necessary counterbalance. Welcome someone who reminds us that technology moves fast, but wisdom still compounds. Daniel Nikic. Hey, Daniel, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Well, thanks for having me, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here.
You've been in research long before AI-powered insights became a buzzword. What's changed most in how high-level investors and founders research today, and maybe what stayed the same?
Great question. So I think what has changed is a lot of the, I would say, bot work when it comes to research in terms of scraping the information. But what hasn't changed is the insights. And that usually comes, or the takeaways, that usually comes from experience and expertise in research. So, for example, someone can type in what are industries to look into, but someone who has industry experience and knows what is going on in the market will be like, we have to look at this market due to the fact that there's a lack of companies based on my research from the past and stuff. And I think this is a growing market, for example. And another thing I would say what's changed is I think there's a lack of appreciation when it comes to research because a lot of investors are taking, I wouldn't say a lot of investors, I would say those who do not have the experience in doing the due diligence are taking AI results face value. And you have to audit AI because AI models are based on data information that's given and hence human bias.
That's absolutely true. And what's the danger, I guess, of just taking it as it comes out, in those types of situations, whether, investor or founder, either one?
I think for investors, they have to understand if you're using a certain AI model, how are different investors using it? And if you're just using it without maybe customizing it in a certain way or using some human intelligence or expertise or experience, you're all going to be fighting for the same companies to invest in.
Yeah.
And I also think that, and I've heard it from several companies. It was funny. I was talking to, this was back like 3 years ago. So I remember this conversation very well because it's kind of a slap in the face in terms of market research. And this investor said he invested in UiPath. For those who don't know UiPath, it was the first AI company to go public, AI focused company to go public, I believe, in from a foreign country, which is originally from Romania, the company. And the investor said, we did not use market research. We just trust our gut, the team, and we agreed with it. And they said that's why we're not a big fan of research, but they're using their human expertise and experience because the VC already has experience in researching and analyzing companies. So there's one way that some investors would not use it.
No, that makes sense.
But I think in some ways the AI should be used to eliminate the bot work because it doesn't think like a human. It thinks what it's told to do. And I know I've used AI sometimes. I'm like, that's not right. I know it can be tweaked up a bit and stuff like that, but
Sure.
it eliminates a lot of work in terms of time that doesn't use a lot of insights in terms of market research. Because if you say, hey, what are recent companies that have received investment? That's just scraping data that's already given. It's kind of like
Right.
secondary research. It's not really the value research as some people would mention.
It makes a lot of sense. And just for context, so when you say AI powered insights, let's put some definition around that. What does that mean practically?
AI powered insights is pretty much the results that you get when asking a question to an AML. It could be Perplexity, Cloud, ChatGPT, Gemini lately. So this is now late November. So Gemini is really booming now from Google, as we've heard lately.
Yep.
And they're great models. I see a big change in what's doing in market research. Is eliminating the industry? No, but AI powered insights are definitely impacting consulting and how we look at research.
It's definitely true. Yeah. Well, you said that many companies are implementing AI unnecessarily. From your perspective, how do you evaluate where AI is truly needed or if it's just a flashy distraction? Because, founders, we all like to chase shiny objects.
No, great question. So it depends. Is it making your company more efficient? Or are you just saying you use AI to sound innovative or, in other words, not missing out, or as we hear the term FOMO, fear of missing out? And if you're utilizing AI and it actually helps it decrease the bottleneck time to deliver a product or service, then it's good. But if it's the same, it's pointless. And I think, for example, for healthcare, it can help with a lot of patient care, with a lot of like the communication stuff, but you should still respect the human intellect that a machine and the AI model cannot replace yet.
It's true. So what do you think the high impact use cases are for AI today? And maybe what are some things that are still overhyped as well?
I think AI is very important in terms of scraping data and analyzing data, hence Palantir. I think that's a great example. I think AI is also very good in terms of dealing with electronic health records. I think it will be good for anything with data. It's very good in terms of AI because it eliminates the time to go through the data and organizes it in a certain manner if trained properly. But I can see it being used more into the entertainment business also. I think we see, especially with these videos on social media and etc.
Sure.
And I think it's for customer care for sure. We see every website now has some AI chatbot, but is it too much different from an original chatbot? I think it depends on what the
Yeah,
customer thinks.
that's definitely
Though,
true.
though I do believe AI can definitely impact how we look in terms of using the data. So what I mean, you're dealing with health records, and it can go into imaging, and it can see based on this data, these dots on an X-ray implement there could be a potential disease or virus infection, etc. So I think for healthcare, it's going to be huge. Transportation is definitely, we know that. Like with
Sure.
anything with data, it's going to impact immensely. And will it take over the tools and trades? No, I don't think so. I think you'll still need human interaction. Robots aren't close. So that's my opinion. But definitely anything with data that uses data to make decision making. But it all depends how it is customized and trained because it's all based on the information and data that you give it. And I was with one startup. This is prior to COVID, prior to ChatGPT, and we're developing our own, let's just say, chatbot in relation to banking reports. The amount of training it needs to be done just to understand income, revenues, net income, all these terms, it's immense. You need so many data points. So if you're not training it properly, it's not going to be efficient, in my opinion.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you say the robots are not there yet, and I think that's true in a lot of ways. But I've seen just even in the last year, warehouse and manufacturing, just how far that's come in such a short amount of time. Yeah, it would not surprise me if tradespeople start having, and maybe this is way in the future, but they start having like a robot helper, carry a water heater upstairs, or do various tasks. I think it's really interesting just seeing, the way that we work today and kind of what's possible in the next step of that kind of reimagining what work even looks like.
Oh, definitely. It's interesting because I've been to the Middle East, and in the Middle East, you kind of get a combination of what's going on in Asia, China, and stuff. And what they're
Yeah.
doing there is really interesting. I've never been to China, but I've seen the companies in these trade shows and stuff in the Middle East. And you see with robotics, like you go to like hotels, like to take your plates and stuff like that. Like they're developing it, and
Yeah.
I was in a podcast about, I would say, 7 months ago, and we're discussing relationships with AI. Like, there's going to be AI boyfriend, AI girlfriend, and etc. And it's like, you think about it, it's like, no way. But it's kind of like that movie I Robot with Will Smith back in
Right.
2007.
Yeah.
And I think it all depends with time. We see Tesla investing into robots, and there's plenty of other companies.
Sure.
But autonomous vehicles, a lot of big companies are investing in it. I don't think we're right there yet because of the amount of training it needs to do and the security implications revolved around that. But it's going to do a lot of stuff, though we're probably 5 to 10 years away from that, in my estimate. I think in
Yeah.
5 years we're going to see more of it, but is it going to be mainstream like the sci-fi movies that we watched back in the 90s and 80s? I don't think.
Right.
It's not going to be like the movie Fifth Element with Bruce Willis.
I did my first ride in Waymo earlier this year, and completely driverless. And I've seen they've rolled out in some more cities since. And this was in Austin. They're now in Dallas, and they rolled out somewhere else here in the last month or so. It's really, really interesting just to have that experience.
Yeah,
And it's kind of interesting. I actually prefer a human driver just for the conversation and just local color, I think is a
yeah.
lot of fun. But at the same time, just having that driverless experience and just getting where you want to go, it was actually a really good experience. I did it a few times, and you can actually select, do I want a driver or no driver, and it's pretty interesting just to see, like, is this really going to work? And it did. Crazy.
But when you mentioned that, you said you want human interaction. I'm the
Yes.
same way too. When I'm in a taxi cab, I don't care if I'm in Riyadh, UAE, London, New York, Toronto. I want to talk to the cab driver
Yeah.
or taxi driver. Why? Because it's, I think it's maybe a traveling thing. When you go there, you want to just talk because you're probably like, who knows if I'll ever meet this person? You might
Right.
learn something interesting. I think with time, more and more people are going to want to have the exclusion of technology, but also AI from their lives. It could be like getaways, like wellness places, or it could be like private clubs that don't allow electronics and stuff. So it's like you're back
Right.
in the 1920s or 30s. You leave your cell phone there, and then there's someone at the front door if they need an emergency or stuff like that. You give like a, hopefully it's a landline or something. But it is really interesting what's going on, but it also makes you think, are humans going to be replaced in some ways in how we think? Like, what value are we going to bring? Are we just going to be, sorry to say it, kind of useless to the growth of society if we have AI and they're going to be able to think, do all this work? And, sometimes I think it's good to be bored, but it's good to be busy too. Because when you're busy, you don't have
Yes.
time to think about bad things because you just don't,
Yeah.
can't. You're just in your own world in a way.
Yeah.
And I think it could lead to the growth of industries such as mental health and even pharmaceutical industries, because there's going to be side effects for sure, in my opinion.
Without a doubt. Yeah, the human element is so important. And you mentioned that earlier, just with the having the human layer and kind of the AI oversight. AI still needs to be audited. What are some examples where human judgment is made or saved a critical decision that AI alone might have really botched up?
I think in terms of AI, when it's getting its research, it's using other sources. Like, just use this source, and it could be like, say, from a journalist or whatever. And if it's politically influenced, say, it could give the wrong opinion because it's not
Sure.
objective. It could be like, oh, are the stock markets going to go up based on this decision? And it uses a source no because a person might have a vendetta against a certain politician, or yes, it's going to be great because they like the politician. So I think that's when it comes to government and politics, there's going to be human bias
Of
based on
course.
the sources. I think with the education system, it really hurt it because we hear in the news professors and stuff, they're saying like it's all chat GPT created. I'm like, well, give them a pen and paper. How did we do it back in the 90s
Right.
or the early 2000s? You write an essay,
Yep.
a 3 hour exam, your hands hurting. Like,
Exactly.
it makes the person think. And I think schools are going to have to go back to that path if they want students to really learn. So I think education got influenced. I think also in terms of, I would say political research, definitely based on the sourcing, because, and another thing is, I think also it sometimes doesn't give the right results in terms of coding, because I've built products using AI and I've had a coder who knows how to code, a developer to help me look at some stuff, and there's some holes. So
Of course.
it's not fully there, but we see also the growth of vibe coding. It's amazing what it does. But I think those are big issues. And I think it also goes back to the part, is this like kind of like, I don't know if you remember when Wikipedia came out, I remember universities use Wikipedia as source. Oh, it's great. But human bias, you can edit it.
Right.
You could say, for example, Miami is the best city in the world. I can edit, be like, no, Toronto or wherever, Milan or etc. Right? So it's, I think it all depends what you're going to use it for, but I think there's been issues there. And at the end of the day, AI is probably, in my opinion, the biggest thing since probably bigger than the internet because it's changing
Yeah,
everyday life. And I think it's scary for a lot of people. We see a lot of jobs getting cut. We hear with Amazon, I think Amazon's cutting a huge part of its workforce and they're using robotics in data warehouse. So that's a good example where we're
sure.
going to see like robotics there. I still think it still needs human interaction, but companies aren't going to be like, say, if you're like a company making 1 million revenue, are you really going to need 50 people or are you going to have less than 10 people in the company? Or in some cases, it's going to be 3 people.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a growth in entrepreneurship, but is there going to be a big fight for the pie of making money? And sorry to go deep in this topic, but I will say this. I think there could be a discussion of universal basic income because if certain individuals do not have the skill set or the experience with these tools and say they're in their close to pension, are they going to want to learn that right away to get a job or are they going to have to make a decision be like maybe the retirement age should be different and stuff? So it's going to be quite a lot of changes. But life has, if you ask someone from 200 years ago today, the world's totally different, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time to be alive. It's really an exciting time to be in the tech world and really experience the change and just try to keep up. I've never seen tech move this fast. Never seen business move this fast. And we've had some major trends over the last 20 years, but nothing like what we're seeing right now. You've got a uniquely global lens, and you mentioned that a little bit about the Middle East, what you see over there. I mean, if you Canada, Croatia, Japan, Venezuela. What are some underreported trends or markets that SaaS founders should be watching right now?
I think the Middle East is very interesting.
Yeah.
The first time I went there was 2 years ago, and I was greatly impressed by it. And we hear about like Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia. I'm not saying about tourism, but they're really pushing entrepreneurship and diversifying their
Yes.
economy, and which I understand you can't really be reliant on oil. So I think with those areas, I think food and agriculture is always going to be big, water. So I'm kind of thinking of necessities like energy saving. Those aren't countries that really need to save on energy. Let's be realistic, due to, but I think those are interesting markets because there's growing. So a lot of stuff that worked in Europe and the States, I think could work there. And I think also I have worked with people that are based in Latin America, and I am greatly impressed in how they do work. Like, I think it's an undervalued market in terms of expertise. And I've worked with individuals from Venezuela with one company I was working with, professionalism top notch. I felt they were, when you're working with someone or you hire someone to work for you want them to make you work better, not that you waste time helping them. They made my life so nice. And I don't say that often. So I think Latin America is always going to be an interesting market. Same with the Middle East because of growing demographics, also healthcare for sure,
Yep.
especially in the Middle East. Tourism's booming there also.
It is.
And I think infrastructure definitely is something that's going to be growing over there. Those are just some industries that I see. Entertainment for sure, especially in Saudi Arabia. Because I remember when I was there last year, and my one friend's like, "Oh, well, Eminem's coming." And I'm like, "Okay." I don't really listen to Eminem. I know a few songs. I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." But I was leaving, and he's like, "There's going to be 200,000 people."
No way.
I'm like, "Wow!"
That's crazy.
And I was like, and I
200,000.
wasn't even thinking about Eminem. I'm like, imagine the organizers, imagine the after concert events, like
Right.
the entertainment, and they're you see it with sports, the UFC. I would say soccer or European football, so I don't offend anyone. Like those are like the entertainment industry is really booming there, and I think they just bought EA Sports. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was PIF, the Public Investment Fund out of Saudi
I think
Arabia.
so.
So I think entertainment's booming. But I think at the end of the day, if you focus on necessities, you're always going to have a growing market. If it's relating to building housing, like the raw supplies, that's going to be important. Cement, all those. And I've talked to a lot of private equity funds. A lot of them look into that stuff and family offices. We might
Yeah.
not think they're. We might think, oh, they're all looking into tech. Well, look at energy. Look at data centers. That's a huge market. Actually, I forgot. Surprised I didn't mention it earlier. Data centers is going to be huge in those markets because more and more it's used, hence AI and technology. And as Jeff Bezos said, I think it was over a decade ago, data is the new oil. But in order to get data, you still need energy. And that comes from
Yes.
oil, solar, and etc. So I think that's going to be important. And those are industries I think. So the Middle East is interesting. I think Eastern Europe is very interesting. And I don't want to say I'm biased because I'm Eastern European descent, but the education system's quite well. I have children, and I'm quite impressed how their mathematics is. And if you
Yes.
look at tech, IT, a lot of them come from that area. Just look at the founder of Google, Sergey Brin. He's born, well, that back in that day was Soviet Union, but present day Russia. Grammarly
Right.
from Ukraine. What's Up guy was from one of the founders was from Ukraine. You see a lot how they're good with technology. And I've talked to this one founder from Georgia, this was like 5 years ago, and I asked him, how come there's so many like good tech people? Tell me honestly. He's like, it was drilled in us in the
Yep.
education system, science and mathematics. So I think in terms of IT development, and I think a lot of people know this, that's very big undervalued market, I think, in Eastern Europe. And I would say that, but also I would say in Latin America, it's a growing market there. We see what's going on. And I think in America, you guys see more what's going on with Latin America than those in Europe or Middle East because of the distance.
Sure.
But
Yeah. Just proximity.
proximity, definitely, and I think tourism's booming over there still. And I would go back to always looking at see what you can do with the raw materials. That's always going to be a important market. You always have to start from the source. And I think that goes with everything. Not all of us can be traders or tech entrepreneurs. It's
Sure.
kind of unrealistic. So I think those industries are always going to be interesting. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. Yes, there's great talent in Latin America. Great talent. We've been, working in Moldova, Ukraine, Romania for 12 years, and just to see those markets develop like they have. I mean, it was, but I guess much smaller back then, and it's those have just really become tech hubs and great places, and the talent is some of the best in the world.
Oh, definitely. And
Yeah.
one other market that I found quite interesting is Turkey and Bulgaria. They
Sure.
develop a lot of manufacturing and a lot of clothing. I was
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
in these high end brands, I saw, I'm like, wow, I know what they sell in retail. And you go to these countries and they're like, yeah, the textile companies are here that develop them. I'm like, interesting. Turkey's the gateway to Europe and Asia. And there
Yeah.
are a lot of interesting companies that deal with industrial manufacturing there. I was quite surprised, and it was really due to my lack of knowledge. This was like almost a decade ago, but industrial AI is something with tech plus machinery and is going to be important too.
Ever notice how every leadership book tells you to take the journey, but none really show you the map? Well, after scaling multiple companies to over 260 million in combined revenue and working with over 1,000 leaders, I discovered the key difference that separates leaders who burn out from those who build unstoppable momentum. It's not strategy, not charisma, it's not even luck. It's relationships, specifically four of them. My new book, The Captain's Keys, reveals the stability matrix, a proven system that transforms leadership from survival into sustainable success. Inside, you'll discover the four critical relationships every leader needs and exactly how to build them. You can get your copy at thecaptainskeys.com, Amazon, or your favorite bookstore, and it's available in print, ebook, and audio. You don't need another playbook. You just need the right people in your boat. Yeah. How should SaaS founders be thinking about outsourcing today? I mean, especially with the potential taxation on foreign labor on the horizon, kind of, the tariffs, rising labor costs. here domestically, reshoring. I mean, there's so much activity happening right now and currently, and then maybe some things that are proposed. How should we be thinking about outsourcing?
No, that's a good question. I think you also have to think about if you're bringing someone to outsource, are they really adding value or are you just using them as cost saving?
Right.
And
Such a good thought right there. Yeah.
and I've worked with American companies. Okay, I'm born and raised in Canada, so depending how you look at it, I think we're neighbors quite similar, but some
Yeah.
might disagree. We're used to colder weather, unless you're from like Montana or Wyoming. You're used to it, or Michigan. But I think you have to look about what are they bringing in to the company. Just like when you hire employees, I've hired employees, I've fired them and stuff, so I understand. Are they bringing value to your company, or are you bringing this outsourced consultant just to cost save? Maybe it's better to get a student if it's going to be very costly. But also, you could consider maybe I should open a subsidiary. Open a subsidiary in one of the countries. It could be Belize or Colombia or whatever, depending on the taxes there and how it is to open a company as a foreigner. And you'll be surprised. There's some you can open a company in Estonia and you get like an e-residency. For those who don't know about Estonia, it's in the Baltic countries, and what they do with technology. I know this like when I back like 15 years ago when I moved from like Canada, and I was like, wow, Estonia is pretty advanced technology. Like you could do
Yeah.
everything via online. So there's certain ways you can maybe open a subsidiary that could be easier for you too. You have someone da 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 you operating, but hey, you guys manage this da 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 in terms of how you guys operate it, make sure it goes good. You have to have trust, obviously, and you could be like a co-founder of the company, or you can open a company in UK and etc. So there's a lot of other ways you can deal with the tariffs. But my honest opinion, I think I think it's I'm talking more about small, medium-sized companies when I'm talking about if they bring value. But if you're a big company, I don't think it's that big of an issue to outsource, but it all depends because we see how much has been outsourced to China in terms of manufacturing stuff. Just look
Right.
at all the factories have been shut down, and even like the car industry, like I think it was the late 50s, early 60s, Detroit was the richest city in the world. And just
Yeah.
like the politics around it and competition. But at the end of the day, I think if you look at any government, they know they have to keep the population satisfied that they can provide for their loved ones and stuff. And they know if there's issues in terms of economics, they're going to have to change it.
Yep. That's true. I think a lot of times we kind of romanticize entrepreneurship, and you've been pretty candid about the volatility of entrepreneurs. What's something about the founder path you still think is misunderstood? I mean, even in today's world.
I think entrepreneurship is probably, besides health and death, is one of the most stressful things. Like if you're a doctor or
Yeah.
nurse, I really feel sympathy for them. I wouldn't be able to do that because you're dealing with something that's really tough. And some kids, I think you have to be very strong to deal with that, or firefighter, police officer, and etc. But I think entrepreneurship is very stressful. Like it is a different type of lifestyle. You cannot think like corporate. You cannot think about vacation. You don't have vacation. If I hear about entrepreneur and they're like, "Oh, I take 4 months of vacation," I'm like, "Where?" I've been an entrepreneur since 2014, and I think every time I'm on vacation, I'm thinking about what I have to do for work. Like you can't shut it off. You maybe bit for a little bit, but you're thinking about, "Oh, I gotta do this. I gotta do this," it and you have to love it. You have to love the process in a way. You have to be very persistent. You have to be able to deal with rejection. And I think it's the Canva founder. I think her name's Melanie Perkins. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she got rejected by so many VCs. I think
Yep.
over 100. And look at the company. Like you have to get used to rejection.
It's true.
And you have to be humble too. Like it's a real big self assessment. Like you and the other people calling you, pardon my language, a loser or a failure, you feel it. You feel it if you're an entrepreneur in a way. You're like, oh man, I didn't get this client. Oh, how I'm gonna make payroll. Oh, how I'm gonna grow. Da, da, da. It is extremely stressful. And I know with social media, people will be like, oh, look at the car, look at this, look at this. For those who have it and they're entrepreneurs, kudos. I give them all the credit. It should inspire you to work harder, and smarter. But I think if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to work hard. That's my belief. I believe in working hard, and I think we can see it through those who are the biggest CEOs. You see how they talk. They always say, "You work hard. You have to do this," and etc. I never heard of anyone who was successful or worked with anyone that was successful that did not work hard. And I've worked with YPO members. I've worked with those who have run companies that are making millions upon millions and valued in billions. They work hard.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. They work hard. They minimize the noise. So I would say distractions. You have to do that. And you have to have great time management. I think time management is not valued enough. And I've dealt with lazy people and I dealt with successful people. Successful people are the most responsive, in my opinion, when it comes to work and personal lives. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm saying based on my experience.
Sure. Sure. What's the biggest mindset difference you see between successful entrepreneurs and the rest?
Successful entrepreneurs, I think they know how to deal with stress. They don't panic when they're dealing with stress or as the American term goes, fires. Because I heard all the time when I was working with American clients, oh, I got to deal with a fire. And I'm like, is it a real fire? No, no, it's a stressful situation. They have great stress management. And I think the other thing is, I think every human is somewhat jealous. Let's be realistic, but they don't let the jealousy consume them and complain. I think they use it to push them even harder. So and they have good, I would say, EQ. They understand what the other person needs and wants are. For example, if you're dealing with an employee, you know at the end of the day, employee wants to get a better pay raise, benefits, or a better position. They're not concerned about you dealing with a shareholder. They want to hear you complain about your job. So I think the successful founders, they understand that. And sometimes they have to start from the bottom. So you hear like Jeff Bezos worked at McDonald's, certain individuals that worked at certain
Sure.
positions to understand the mentality. And I think that's what it is. I think EQ is very important. Understand what the other person's wants and needs are and what they're going through. You have to have somewhat empathy in a way if you're dealing with a client, you have to know what their wants and needs. They know you want their money. That's obvious. But are you providing a need or a want for them that they may not have realized or what they have to deal with right now?
Yeah. SaaS companies today, I think, are under a lot of pressure to AIify everything. What's your advice to founders trying to evaluate where AI should actually live in their product or inside their operation?
I think it goes back to the basics. And when I worked with this one fund that has friend capital partners, the partners always said user experience. If it's going to make the
Mm.
user experience more complicated and uneasy, don't add it. If it's not going to enhance the product or service, don't worry about it. Then if you're going to use AI for something else, okay, use it as a side product or something. But if it's going to make the current product or less appealing to the user, don't do it. Because your competitors are waiting for you to fail and they're going to grab more of your market share. So that would be my advice. Because user experience is important. Why do people like ChatGPT? Because you get the results so easily. Yeah, you get the results
Yeah,
via Google, but it takes more time. But that's
sure.
why they have Gemini and etc.
Makes sense. Well, in your work, you help high net worth clients evaluate emerging tech. What's your approach to separating real innovation from a polished pitch?
Due diligence. So you kind of look at the patents. And I think patents are important because even if a company doesn't have that much revenue, a patent can help them in valuation or getting acquired. Because if you have a patent and another company is using your similar product, you can sue them for infringement, for example. So that's the importance of patents, in my opinion. But one thing is definitely there's nice pitch decks, but you have to look at the market, the team, and finances are important. And this might go back to interpersonal skills. A lot of times investors want to invest in companies that they like or the people that are running it. They're not going to invest in someone that they don't like. That's a very rare.
Makes a lot of sense. If we fast forward, say 5 years, which is an eternity in tech world, maybe even we just say 2 years, how do you think AI will have changed how investors evaluate SaaS startups? Will, traditional metrics like CAC to LTV and ARR still matter, or will it be something different?
I think ARR has changed a lot in terms of valuing SaaS companies because it's also because you see some companies they're not even have a product and are getting valued billions. I think her name's Mira Murati, uh, the former CTO of OpenAI. She didn't have a product there and she was valued in the billions. I know like the Albanian government invested in her company and etc. And I think it's also going to be who's the team. Do they have serial? Are they serial entrepreneur? Do they have experience? So it's going to be more about the founders and what's the target market. I think that's going to be even more important than AR because I think companies are going to succeed but also fail quicker than before.
Sure.
And I remember it was like the Fortune 500 companies. Individual said a very interesting thing. He stated that the average lifespan of a Fortune 500 company on the list is like 18 months, but before it was like 5 years and or 10 years, etc. So it's
Yeah.
changed rapidly. And look at like, for example, NVIDIA 10 years ago. It wasn't a popular AMD, Palantir. But these companies were formed in like, I think NVIDIA was formed in 1993. That's over
Yeah.
30 years ago. So I think that's
Overnight
definitely
success.
it's not really overnight success when you look at it. 1993, like you gotta
I
be
know. I
patient.
know. People look at
It's
it that
tough.
way, though. They're like, oh, they just, now they just exploded and overnight success. That's the perception.
No,
But,
I
but
agree.
you're
I
right.
agree.
It's 32 years of grinding. And then the last two have been an amazing rocket ride. They built a great, great company well before that. But the last few years have been a rocket ride. And people look at that and they're like, wow, overnight success.
But you made a good point when it comes to what's the difference between successful entrepreneurs, patience, and being believing in yourself. I'm not trying to say I'm like those like guru books. You have to believe in yourself. Yeah, you gotta put the hard work. You have to. But can you imagine
Sure.
how much stressful it was like in the beginning to say, hey, we got products that's gonna be amazing in like 30 years or 20 years. Dealing with
Right.
investors, dealing with employees, the stress, like it's not easy. Now they think, oh, Jensen Wong, oh, he has a life because he wears the leather jacket and he's going on these conferences. I'm like, I don't imagine how much stress he had to deal with in the 90s to 2000s, etc. He still has
Sure.
to. Every quarter, he has to deal with shareholders and
Yeah.
growth.
Dot-com boom and bust. I mean, recessions. I mean, take that 30-year span and all of the things that happened in there, and they survived all of that, and came out and did really, really well. They built great products the entire time.
Oh, definitely. And I think another thing is when you mentioned about SaaS, AI companies they still have a subscription model. So,
Yeah.
like, I just think that SaaS companies, if they have a product that's going to be useful and needed for the next 5 years, they're going to be okay. If not, they're going to have to innovate with AI.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of investors look at that. And that's why they invest in these companies that don't have any revenue yet and are valued in the billions because they see it for the next 5 to 10 years.
Valuations are just crazy, crazy.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's not free money. I think some people misinterpret that. They think,
Yes,
oh,
that's
this
correct.
person's a billionaire, like I mentioned before, Marathi, who got the big investment. Yeah, but it's not her money. She's got to get an ROI for those investors. And
Yeah.
a lot of them might have voting shares, and those who don't know, like prefer shareholders. If they get enough votes, they can kick out the CEO and stuff.
That happens all the time. Yeah.
Just imagine you're a CEO. You've worked so hard to build this company. You grinded it out, and you're gone. And you're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. We're passionate about our work. It's like a
Yeah.
child to us.
Yeah. I've seen that happen way too many times. Yeah, what would your advice be? I mean, being in that position of making recommendations and about emerging tech, what advice would you give SaaS founders who are trying to raise capital in a market that right now is flooded with AI pitches and maybe a little short on trust? Now, what signals really matter to you?
I think finance is still important because at the end of the day, they're investing in you because they want to make money. They're not investing to be your Facebook friend or whatever.
Right.
It's a money business. Oh, you have great ESG. Yeah, but is your ESG going to bring me money? Yes or no? That's like to be very to the point. Make sure you know your finance. What's your pipeline? Make sure you got a good pipeline. And is your company going to grow? That if they invest 1 million, that they get a return at least 3x or 10x, and be like, hey. And I think sometimes if you're a founder, you have to have an exit plan. What's your vision? And you have to tell the story good. You kind of have to be an entertainer. What's your story? How did you come up with this idea? I remember this one company I did due diligence. The story came because they got in a car accident and they thought of this product, da da da. And it's like, wow, it's like a movie. It's a Hollywood movie how this
Yeah.
person thought of it. So you have to pitch it good. And you have to understand that you have to, if you're a founder trying to get investment and it's all AI and stuff, you can just be like, yeah, I understand AI, but guess what? We're generating revenue. We're going to grow. And not every successful company has to be AI. And
Yep.
that's true.
That's a great
Because I
thought.
think just because every company is AI, it doesn't mean you have to be a next AI company.
Yeah.
And there's some companies that do not have AI and they're doing great.
Well, where can people learn more about you online?
They could check out my website at www.danielnikic.com or check me out on LinkedIn or watch your podcast.
Outstanding. We'll make sure and link this in the show notes and all your contact info. Daniel, it's been a great conversation. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks again, Daniel, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and resources. You can learn more about Daniel and his company CoRes at cohres.com, COHRES. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to check out our channel on YouTube as well. It's at Champion Leadership. Thought leaders share. Share this episode with a teammate who loves frameworks so much, they actually forget to do the thing. Everyone who shares this week gets a laminated strategy bingo card. Fill a row with words like leverage, alignment, and North Star, and you win absolutely nothing, just like in real meetings. What if revenue operations, RevOps, were built for the agentic AI era, not for legacy systems? On our next episode, we have Mark Walker, CEO of New. He joins us to explore how modern SaaS companies are rethinking quote to cash, eliminating revenue leakage, and scaling faster with intelligent revenue lifecycle management. Mark is helping define what's next for revenue teams. You won't want to miss that one. And then next up, 1 week from today, why do goals and targets so often backfire? And what actually works instead? Well, Radhika Dutt, author of Radical Product Thinking, joins us to challenge conventional wisdom around innovation, metrics, and incentives. With experience spanning 5 acquisitions, advising the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and building products across industries from robotics to wine, Radhika brings a truly global and contrarian perspective on building products that matter. She is a fantastic guest. You're going to love that one as well. So I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.